Hello, I'm Virginia Eskin. Welcome to First Ladies of Music. Today we're going to move to music of the Salon. By 1800, the world had changed, and political, social, and economic events made women able to participate, and they enjoyed opportunities that they hadn't really had before. In our first program, women seemed almost oppressed. And then in our second program, which was during the Renaissance, we felt that women were moving into the picture. They certainly were allowed to perform and compose music. But now we feel that things have really evolved, and women composers are able to step right up to the sort of center of the action. It seems that women composers were accepted. It was not regarded as a negative. Whether or not they were able to get their music always published was another matter, but at least people accepted the fact that they existed. Well, what is a salon exactly? It's a very interesting thing that powerful women created for themselves, because up until then, music was really for the church or for the court, and you had to be invited to the court. Not just anybody could show up. The most powerful salons seem to have been in Paris and in France. There were versions of them, of course, in other European cities and even in England. The salon offered a wonderful way that a woman could show off her beautiful home, she could show off her wealth, and she could show off her erudition. When you take somebody like George Sand, who in a way invented the whole notion of the salon, she would invite philosophers, writers, painters, musicians, composers, and other women who were also interesting in their own right. And they would listen to each other's writings or philosophies. And this provided an arena, because it still is not accepted that women would be allowed to perform. You were not allowed to take money for a performance. That was considered negative. So the way women got around this was to create a salon. Now, our first woman is Louise Farrenc, and she was French, born in Paris in 1804 and lived till 1875. And even though she wasn't a major powerhouse performer, she created a great deal of music, and she taught. She marries a flutist and a music publisher. His name was Aristide Farrenc, and he was very supportive of her, and that's certainly a good thing. And she seems to have created a role and a meaningful life for herself. And we have quite a bit of her music. Louise Farrenc was a professor at the Paris Conservatoire, so she must have been a good pianist. And she spent her life being a serious composer and a teacher. She didn't like to play in public. Let's listen to the last movement of her second piano quintet, Opus 31, played by the Linos Ensemble. You just heard the Piano Quintet Number 2, Opus 31, the last movement, composed by Louise Farrenc, played by the Linos Ensemble. Our next woman comes from a very interesting family. They were all very accomplished. That is Pauline Viardot Garcia. Her father was a renowned singer. He apparently was the original Figaro in The Barber of Seville. Her brother was also a renowned tenor. And she goes on to marry Louis Viardot, who was a writer and a theater producer who gave up his own career to work on hers. Pauline Garcia is often thought of as a minor figure. Why? Because she did not write chamber music. There's no opera, there's no liturgical music, but these songs that you're going to hear are absolutely charming. She was a talented pianist. She studied with Liszt, and Reika, who was considered an important composer of that day, was also very impressed with her, and so was Clara Schumann. She's supposed to have said, she's the most gifted woman I've ever met. Chopin was so impressed with Viardot's singing and her musicality, he allowed her to take some of his mazurkas and change them around, change the keys, and add words. That's high praise because I don't think Chopin did that for any other composer. What she did not do is leave us a large oeuvre of music, unfortunately. She left these delightful songs, and you're going to hear 3 of them. They are sung by Isabel Barakdarian, and the first one is Les Filles de Cadiz, and that demonstrates the sort of Spanish quality, and Pauline Viardot is getting that, of course, from the Spanish father. The second one is Plainte d'amour, and that's taken from a mazurka of Chopin's. And the third one is Pauline's Alone, Désespoir.
Mes lèvres veulent sourire.
You just heard 3 songs by Pauline Viardot Garcia, sung by Isabel Barak-Darian. Now we're going to address ourselves to her daughter, Louise Héritte-Viardot. She was apparently more interested in composing chamber music. We don't know whether she composed songs. The only reason I know that she wrote these 3 piano quartets is that a friend of mine who's a librarian in Boston recently was given the music to them, and since he knows that I love music by women, he called me up and said, this is something you might be interested in, and I sure am. What's interesting in the music is the fact that the daughter pays homage to her Spanish background. This is a piano quartet. It's called Spanish Piano Quartet, and each movement has a Spanish name. And there's a very sparkly quality to the writing. Let me demonstrate just the beginning. It's almost like you could imagine castanets and tambourines. It's very dance-like. And then you'll hear they have wonderful melodies. And I think she probably got that idea from her very talented mother. So let's listen to the first movement, played by friends of mine, the New England String Ensemble, and I'm playing with them. Here's the first movement from Louise Viardot's Piano Quartet. You've just heard Louise Viardot's Spanish Quartet for piano and 3 strings, performed by the New England String Ensemble and myself, Virginia Eskin. This was performed and recorded by WGBH Radio in Pickman Hall at the Lange School of Music in Cambridge on May 2nd, 2004. You're listening to First Ladies of Music with Virginia Eskin over the WFMT radio network. Well, now we come to the most beloved and probably best known, and in a way the saddest stories in music history, and that would be, of course, the Mendelssohn family. When you first look at them, they seem ideal. We know they were based in Berlin. The father's a wealthy merchant. The family home was essentially a salon for performers. They enjoyed economic stability. They were allowed to live outside the ghetto, which was very rare for a Jewish family. And the parents encouraged them. The grandfather was the famous Talmudic scholar, Moses Mendelssohn. When you look at the family picture, the thing that jumps out is why wasn't Felix more supportive of his sister? Everything he composed, she vetted. Everything she composed, he heard but was not encouraging. And you have to be very sensitive when you look at the family because on the face of it, they seem ideal. They're being very creative, everybody's supporting each other, but not really. The father of Fanny said, your role is to become steady and collected and prepare to be a housewife. In other words, don't get any wild ideas about being a performer because that will cut against your getting a good marriage. Now, the irony of that is that she falls in love with an artist, a man named Hensel. And the only reason that's really interesting to us is because he drew beautiful portraits of the whole family, and they were all artists. All of them drew, they composed, very, very rich lives, and they had a salon every Sunday night. It makes it so poignant that Fanny did not enjoy real support. And after you hear some of this music that she composed, it will break your heart because this was a very skilled woman. Just like Nannerl Mozart, she had an enormous gift. Why is it snuffed out? It's because the male relatives, and even the mothers in both cases, feel that it's for their own good. And that's a very sad thing because the music they wrote is so strong and so exciting and so wonderful. Well, today we can hear it, and it's very important that it be heard, and it's already being folded into programs on a regular basis, and that's a wonderful thing. I'd like to play a little lieder ohne Wörter, which just means songs without words. It's a piece that Felix played for Queen Victoria. Here is Fanny's Song Without Words in D flat. We're talking about Fanny Mendelssohn, and I just shared with you a piece that Felix loved to perform, but he would conveniently leave off the fact that his sister had written it. We know that the family was very, very interested in the music of Bach. We know that the family revered Bach's music, and the children were required to compose preludes and fugues. I want you next to hear a very beautiful organ prelude. As Fanny prepared for her own wedding, she wanted to compose a prelude that would be played at her wedding. Let's listen to this organ prelude, and if I hadn't told you that Fanny composed it, you might well think that it was an early work of one of the Bachs. It's in F major. Martin Rost is the organist. Here's Fanny Mendelssohn's organ prelude in F. You just heard the organ prelude in F major written by Fanny Mendelssohn. Now, I was talking about how she must have had a great skill, and the next piece really bears that out. Let's listen to a movement from Fanny Mendelssohn's Lobgesang. It's sung by the chamber choir of Dortmund. Willy Gundlach is conducting.
Oh
You just heard a movement from Fanny Mendelssohn's Lobgesang, sung by the University Chamber Choir of Dortmund. Willy Gundlach was the conductor. Now, the next little selections I want you to hear in trying to understand Fanny Mendelssohn's very specific quality of writing. It's entirely different from Felix's. Sometimes I will say that her music is Dionysian and his is Apollonian. What do I mean by that? Well, there's a frantic quality. You might say that women are accused of being highly excitable. Well, I think that would certainly apply in Fanny's case. Let me share with you some bars from a small piano piece she wrote, and it has this frantic quality. Do you hear what I mean? It's really very, very almost manic. And what she does is different. She puts the melody in between. Felix's Song Without Words are just the opposite. The melody is always on the top. Fanny was not interested in that. It was too ordered. And what she does in the first movement of her piano trio is really different. The cellist all of a sudden has a cadenza all by himself near the end of the movement. So listen for that interesting cello cadenza in Fanny Mendelssohn's trio. It's played by members of the Fanny Mendelssohn Quartet with Stefan Mickisch. You've just heard the brilliant first movement of the Fanny Mendelssohn Piano Trio in D minor, played by members of the Fanny Mendelssohn Quartet with pianist Stefan Mikisch. Well, it's safe to say that in our first 3 programs, we've seen that women have come a long way and that they found ways to compose, perform, get their music acknowledged and even published, and get some recognition along the way. I don't think you can hear gender in music, but I do think it's very fair to say that women compose differently than men. Today, women are doing things professionally that were undreamed of in the 1800s. We've come to a wonderful time in life where it is recognized that women can do everything, and more music by women is appearing on concert programs with regularity. But in trying to understand how we got from there to here, it's important to understand that the women we've been hearing did not enjoy that kind of freedom and acceptance. I hope you've enjoyed taking this journey with me today, and that you'll join me next time when we explore music written by 4 European women in the 19th century. First Ladies of Music with Virginia Eskin is produced by Carolyn Pollan for the WFMT Radio Network. Steve Robinson is the executive producer. The engineer is Mary Mazurek. Thanks to Alice Abraham, librarian at WGBH Radio in Boston. And special thanks to Boston's Northeastern University for their generous support. I'm Virginia Eskin, inviting you to join me again next time for First Ladies of Music. This is the WFMT Radio Network.